Well, heightened trade tensions are set to dominate G20 talks in Japan as the escalating economic conflict between the US and China casts a shadow over global markets. As Sky News chief political reporter Kieran Gilbert explains from Tokyo, the possibility of a technological Cold War remains a real possibility if negotiations break down.
In the lead up to the G20 summit, there's been a lot of anti-US propaganda in China. As for the United States part, there have been mixed messages. Mike Pence, the Vice President, delayed a China speech because he didn't want to quash any prospect of a deal, but at the same time, the Commerce Department slapped more tariffs on more Chinese companies. So a lot of mixed messages, not a lot of optimism ahead of the G20 that some sort of deal will be struck between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump. If there is to be any sort of deal, though, the US will have to compromise at least a little to allow China to save face. Here was one of the top Chinese negotiators overnight.
Meeting each other halfway means both sides have to compromise and make concessions, not just one side.
The risks of no deal, well, they're huge, not just in terms of spiralling tariffs, but what's known as a decoupling of the two economies of China and the US, with particularly in tech and science, the two economies separating. They had been increasingly intertwined. This trade war will see a gradual end to that and potentially a Cold War, according to Shiro Armstrong from the ANU.
If we don't get a deal or a truce between China and the United States, there's a chance of escalation into a tech war. I mean, already we've seen Huawei being banned from participating in the United States. So it could be a tech war and a new Cold War.
So in many respects, other world leaders will be bystanders to the main game in Japan this week, watching to see whether Xi Jinping and Donald Trump can come up with a deal. But still an important part to play for Scott Morrison. He should be engaging as much as possible with like-minded nations, including the Japanese themselves and the host, Prime Minister Abe.